Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Well, it's 5 o'clock and I'm gonna do a little quilting with my Sashiko on my by my side quilt that I just recently designed and still need to write the actual written directions for. But first off, how do y'all like my sticker? So it's funny because my husband pointed out that every time I start a video, I start with "Hey y'all," which, as I'm sure you know, is a Southern thing. So when my little bonus daughter and I were away at a tree house for a mini vacation for several days this past week, I found this sticker. So, hey y'all, I hope you're having a good weekend. We just had some a piece of some company leave, so I'm just now getting a chance to do a little bit of quilting this evening. And I am using my Sashiko on my by my side quilt. So I was going to show you what I'm doing. So first off, let me just kind of move my camera here. And I have used my friction pen, and I have drawn my lines with my friction pen because this is actually the edge. So around the whole edge of this entire quilt is this. So ultimately, it's kind of some triangles that kind of come together, but when I quilt it, I'm using this pattern here, and I'm using the Sashiko to make these stitches that look like hand stitches. So anyway, I thought I would show you how I'm doing it, because when you use the Sashiko, one thing you have to keep in mind is if you're using it to quilt your quilt sandwich together, you have to start at the edge and go edge to edge with it. So in other words, for this, either you'd have to start here and go all the way across the quilt so that the tail is here where the binding will eventually be, all the way to the other side. Or what I decided to do was to just do the edges all the way around with it. So I'm starting here and then following here for an even stitch, pivot, and then come all the way down, and it'll end at this edge on this side. I think you probably saw on my Better Together quilt, I actually used my Sashiko for some quilting in the center of the quilt, and that was a lot of stopping and starting. So my tails on the back were loose and they had to be buried. So that was something that I learned that I probably won't do very often unless I'm just doing the top layer and then the threads are hidden. So for this one, I'm using it to actually quilt my 3 layers together. So again, start here, and I'm just doing a grid, and so it will be this all the way around the entire quilt. So let me put my camera back where it was, and I'll kind of show you how I am doing this on the edges so you can see. Get that set back up there. Eventually, I think next month I'm gonna buy the arm that like holds my phone up above so you can see it from that angle rather than from the side. But I've yet to do that yet. So let me see if I can get this turned around without knocking my camera off. Okay, I think that'll stay like that. So you just kind of, you know, bunch it up like we normally would. And I start off the edge of the quilt. If you can see, let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see. So I start off so that the tail's going to be over here in the batting. And all these tails will be completely hidden, and ultimately the binding will go on here. So I don't have to worry about burying any threads because it's one continuous stitch all the way through. So I'll show you how I'm doing that. And I start with the needle down for this because when I get to the pivot point on here, I need to be able to pivot and turn without my needle being up so that there's not any gaps in the stitch. So here we go. I kind of just have it up in my lap and make it to where there's not a lot of pull on my table because I have an extension table here. So just stitch, and you can kind of go, you know, I don't really go much faster than this. but you do kind of have to lift your quilt up just a little bit to where there's no pull, because this machine does not come with a walking foot. So if there's too much pull on it, then what'll happen is, let me zoom in here. If there's too much pull on it, then what'll happen is your stitches will actually not be the length they need to be. So I have it on 4 for stitch length and spacing. So I have to kind of keep it lifted up a little bit so that it doesn't pull it and the stitches stay even. So here we go, and I'll show you when I pivot. And you want your needle to be down when you get to the point that you're going to pivot. So for me, it's right there. And then lift up your presser foot with the needle down, and then I'm going to turn my quilt into the position that I need it to be in to be able to finish this stitch off the other edge. I'll just put my presser foot back down. There we go. And kind of, again, I have this up in my lap a little bit so there's not a drag. And then just kind of got it through. And I'm not perfectly staying on my line. It's kind of a guide. But sometimes you have to kind of stop and rearrange your fabric. And then I'll sew right off the edge. And the great thing is too, when I'm done with this section, I just use my iron, and the heat will actually cause the friction pin, you know, to disappear where I marked it. So then I just lift my presser foot up, and you can use the little cutter there to cut your thread, and then you can see the stitch there and what that looks like. So let me move this over here for you. There it is. So anyway, the lines drawing these here will help you, if you can stay on as best you can. I got off this one a little bit there. Whoops, right there. But that's okay, because this actually looks more hand stitched when it's not perfect. So that's what that looks like. I'll scoot it back a little bit. So anyway, if you use the Sashiko for quilting, remember edge to edge so you don't have to bury your threads. Or for example, me, this is an on-point quilt that I've made. So I have this really unique kind of border the whole way around, and I'm doing it this way. So these will just kind of crisscross over each other. So I don't know if I'll get it all done today. I actually haven't quilted since last weekend because we went away and then had company. So that's what we've got going on right now. Y'all have a great rest of your Sunday.